Do this just once, and his soul will choose you over everyone else. As Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. In love, the same truth applies. Authenticity is the most magnetic force of all. When you embody your true essence, without pretending or competing, something extraordinary happens. The right soul feels it and chooses you beyond all reason. Today, on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore how just one shift in your energy can transform the way love finds you. But before we begin, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where simply being yourself drew someone closer without effort? Share your story in the comments below, and let's awaken this hidden power together. 1. The real secret of attraction. True magnetism has nothing to do with flawless looks, eternal youth, or material wealth, because attraction, at its deepest level, is not a game of appearances, but a resonance of energies. When you try to impress, compete for attention, or prove your worth, you unknowingly weaken your essence because you step out of truth and into performance. What captivates a man on a primal and spiritual level is not perfection, but presence, not chasing, but being, not needing, but radiating. Authentic feminine energy is the force that calls him home, because it communicates safety, trust, and authenticity without a single word. Spirituality and spiritual awakening remind us that this energy arises when you live from alignment with yourself, when your body, heart, and spirit move as one rather than scattering to seek validation. A calm presence, a soft breath, an unhurried response. These subtle signals carry more weight than any strategy, because they tell his instincts, you are not a storm of insecurity, but a steady flame of truth. Competing for affection says, I can be negotiated, while embodying your essence says, I am whole as I am. You do not need to be louder to be seen. You need only to be true. Boundaries set with grace, desires expressed with courage, and the ability to receive without apology make you unforgettable. The woman who no longer runs after, but simply lives her truth, becomes rare. Because she does not barter her worth for attention, she embodies it. This is why authentic feminine energy is not about playing roles, but about living in integrity with your own spirit. It is the way you listen with your whole being, the warmth in your gaze, the depth in your silence, and the joy in your yes or no that carries the weight of truth. From a Jungian perspective, this is the moment when your inner masculine and feminine integrate structure and flow, clarity and softness, discernment and openness. That inner union creates a completeness that others feel immediately, because wholeness is magnetic. To act from this place, you do not need grand gestures. You need one self-honoring choice that interrupts your old pattern. Perhaps it is waiting before responding, so you answer from truth instead of fear. Perhaps it is saying no to something that dishonors your time. Perhaps it is boldly naming a desire and leaving space for it to be met. The moment you do this once, your body feels relief, your spirit awakens, and your energy shifts from chasing to inviting. This shift is undeniable because it carries the signal of authenticity that men instinctively recognize and respect. It rests instead of grasps. It welcomes instead of demands. And it holds a quiet confidence that no strategy could ever replace. Spirituality and spiritual awakening in this context are not abstract concepts. They are lived experiences of coming home to your center, of allowing your presence to reveal truth before your words ever do. When you embody this, you stop auditioning for love and start radiating it. You stop over-explaining and start being understood without effort. You stop fearing you are too much or not enough, because you know you are exactly enough when you are real. True magnetism is never about dazzling for a fleeting moment. It is about becoming the steady light that makes the right soul choose you, not because you demanded it, but because your authenticity guided him there. Do you believe in the real secret of attraction? If you do, declare it boldly in the comments. I carry the true magnetism of my soul, and I am chosen. 2. The trap most women fall into. Many women unknowingly fall into a subtle yet painful trap when it comes to love. A trap that has nothing to do with beauty, intelligence, or worthiness, but everything to do with overgiving, trying too hard, and making themselves endlessly available. In their attempts to be chosen, they pour out their time, their affection, and their energy without pause, believing that this sacrifice will earn them love. Yet what happens is the opposite. They become invisible, not because they lack value, but because they disconnect from the radiant core of their true essence. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And in relationships, this wisdom carries even greater weight. When you step outside of your authentic self and lose your boundaries in the hope of being validated, you dim the very light that makes you magnetic. On the deepest level, men are not drawn to perfection, nor to someone who constantly proves her worth by doing more. They are irresistibly drawn to a woman who radiates completeness, who carries within her the quiet confidence of someone rooted in her authenticity. This is not about playing games or withholding affection, but about embodying a state of inner wholeness that cannot be faked. Spiritual wisdom across cultures has long taught that the one who stands in her true essence becomes like a flame bright, steady, and impossible to ignore. Walter Riso called this female magnetic presence, the quality that makes a woman unforgettable, not because she competes, but because she embodies her sacred feminine energy with grace and power. Carl Jung revealed another truth when he said, "The soul has an innate drive toward wholeness." When a woman gives to the point of exhaustion, hoping to be chosen, what she is showing is not love, but disconnection from her own wholeness. This creates the very pain of being unseen, because the essence of attraction is not found in sacrifice, but in alignment. A woman who lives in harmony with her authentic self doesn't need to chase, convince, or prove. She naturally draws others to her through the energy she radiates. The paradox is that the less she tries to force love, the stronger her magnetism becomes. Think of a sunflower. It does not beg for sunlight, nor does it twist itself to compete with other flowers. It simply turns toward the light that nourishes it and blooms from its own nature. In the same way, when a woman reclaims her authenticity and stands rooted in her essence, she shines in a way that is undeniable. Men are instinctively drawn to this radiance, not because she is giving endlessly, but because she is whole within herself. The trap of overgiving dissolves when you recognize that you never had to prove your worth at all. What makes a man's soul choose you over everyone else is not effort, but essence. Not the exhaustion of giving more, but the luminous power of being fully yourself. 3. Walter Riso's discovery. Walter Riso, after many years of study, uncovered something profoundly transformative that he named female magnetic presence, a state of being that cannot be reduced to outer beauty, flawless perfection, or endless competition for attention. What he revealed is that men are not truly captivated by appearances, games, or superficial charm, but by something far deeper. A woman who radiates wholeness, authenticity, and sacred feminine energy that flows from the very core of her being. This kind of presence is powerful because it does not strive to impress, it does not beg to be noticed, and it does not fear being overlooked. Instead, it simply shines with quiet confidence, reminding us of Carl Jung's timeless truth. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. When a woman embraces this state, she naturally embodies strength without aggression, softness without weakness, and confidence without arrogance, creating a balance that the male psyche instinctively responds to with reverence and awe. It is not about becoming more perfect or more available, for paradoxically, those efforts often make one invisible. It is about aligning so deeply with oneself that presence alone becomes magnetic. This is where spirituality and spiritual growth enter the picture, because the essence of this magnetism is not about external validation, but about inner harmony. A woman rooted in her sacred feminine energy no longer feels the need to chase, prove, or perform, because her energy already communicates a message older than words, one that resonates in the subconscious mind and draws others toward her effortlessly. Walter Riso explained that this presence cannot be manufactured or faked because it is not an act, but a state of being, a silent power that radiates from truth. Jung himself emphasized that the unconscious mind responds to archetypes, symbols, and energies that bypass logic, which is why this magnetic presence has such a primal pull. It bypasses rational calculation and touches something instinctive, something men recognize without fully understanding why. When a woman embodies completeness, she no longer waits to be chosen, because her presence naturally awakens the desire in another's soul to choose her above all else. In this light, attraction is no longer a game of tactics, but a reflection of spiritual wisdom. The more you nurture your inner self, heal your wounds, and cultivate balance between strength and tenderness, the more your energy communicates that you are whole. You do not demand love, because love is already drawn to you. You do not seek recognition, because your presence commands it without effort. This is the paradox that Walter Riso's discovery highlights. The less you chase, the more you attract, and the more you return to yourself, the more others long to return to you. Carl Jung believed that when we align with our authentic self, we tap into an energy that not only transforms our lives, but also the lives of those around us. A woman who embodies this feminine magnetic presence is like the sun. She does not move to seek the sunflower, but the sunflower turns toward her light. The lesson for you, then, is to stop measuring your worth by how much you give, how flawless you appear, or how tirelessly you try to be chosen. Instead, recognize that your greatest power lies in authenticity, in the completeness of your being, in the spiritual growth that allows you to stand firm in who you are. When you do this, you do not just capture attention, you capture the soul. And in that moment, his heart sees no other option but you. This is the true secret of attraction, one that transcends the surface and reaches into the realm of spirituality, reminding you that magnetism is not about effort, but about essence, not about chasing, but about radiating, not about being perfect, but about being whole. Leave your like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of Carl Jung's powerful insights. 4. The power of sacred surrender. Surrender is not weakness, but the purest form of strength. For it is the moment you stop forcing, chasing, and clinging, and instead choose to trust yourself, your worth, and the natural flow of love. To surrender is to live fully, to place yourself at the center of your own life, and to allow love to meet you where you already stand whole. The paradox is that when you stop trying to be chosen, you awaken a man's deepest instinct to choose you. He senses your independence, your calmness, your quiet power, and this stirs within him something ancient and irresistible, because devotion is always drawn to dignity. When you no longer beg for attention or prove your value, you radiate an authenticity that no performance could ever match. And this is the magnetism of true spirituality in love. Sacred surrender does not mean you no longer care. It means you align your words, your actions, your desires, so that you no longer dilute your truth for the sake of being wanted. You still show up, you still love, you still give, but not from desperation, not from fear of being left behind. Instead, you give from fullness, from overflow, from a place where your joy, your rituals, your friendships, your purpose all stand strong, whether someone is beside you or not. A woman who surrenders in this way is not empty waiting to be filled. She is already overflowing, and that is why love flows to her. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you embody that truth, you no longer need to chase, because you have already become magnetic. The essence of surrender looks like an open palm instead of a clenched fist, and an open palm can hold and receive what a tight grip would crush. It looks like resting in your peace rather than running after someone's shadow. It looks like smiling at romance without making it the source of your worth, letting chemistry be a spark but not your foundation, allowing a man to walk the bridge toward you instead of exhausting yourself building it alone. In practice, surrender means answering from authenticity, not panic. It means speaking boundaries with warmth and clarity rather than long explanations. It means investing in your body, your mind, your spiritual awakening, so that your radiance is not borrowed from his attention, but generated by your alignment. Each time you resist the urge to control outcomes, you send a clear message to life itself. I trust the timing that protects me. And here is the mystery. Men feel this shift without needing it explained. Your independence feels like safety. Your wholeness feels like rarity. Your calm feels like depth. The man meant for you will step closer, not because you begged, but because your energy left him no choice. He will feel that the only way to experience you is to honor you. When you live this way, something inside you settles. Your nervous system softens, your intuition grows sharper, and your presence becomes a sanctuary. Love then becomes not a frantic search, but a natural arrival, because you have surrendered the illusion of control and claimed the truth of your worth. This is the power of sacred surrender. It is not about losing, it is about choosing. And the moment you choose yourself, love cannot help but choose you. 5. 3 pillars of magnetic feminine energy. True magnetism has never been about flawless beauty, youth, or wealth. It is something far more subtle, something that Carl Jung would say comes from the soul itself, a force that cannot be faked or manufactured because it emerges when a woman lives in her authentic energy. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that the deepest kind of attraction is not born from manipulation or games, but from an energy field that speaks directly to the unconscious mind. And this is why some women, without trying, awaken a man's attention as though his soul has remembered something it had forgotten. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when a woman dares to live from that truth, she carries an aura that makes her unforgettable, because the masculine recognizes something eternal within her presence, something he cannot find elsewhere. And this recognition is guided by three powerful pillars of magnetic feminine energy: emotional independence, conscious presence, and unconditional self-love. Emotional independence is the first pillar, and it is the foundation that makes everything else possible. Because a woman who is whole within herself no longer bends to the winds of validation or rejection. She no longer needs to be chosen to know her worth. And this steadiness is what draws others to her, like a tree whose deep roots withstand every storm. In Jungian psychology, the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole, is the deepest calling of every soul. And when a woman embodies even a glimpse of this inner wholeness, she becomes magnetic in a way that appearance alone never could, because men sense immediately that she is not demanding to be completed, but instead offering the rare presence of someone who already is. The second pillar, conscious presence, is just as powerful, because when a woman is fully present, she is not distracted. She is not anxiously calculating her next words, and she is not clinging to the man as though her existence depends on him. She is simply here, radiant and attentive, yet still grounded in her own essence. This is not obsession. It is not self-abandonment. It is the ability to bring the fullness of her being into a moment without losing herself inside of him. And this is why her energy feels like sunlight, warm, alive, nourishing, but never desperate. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And presence is precisely this awakening, the kind that does not come from fantasy, but from self-awareness. Because a woman who is awake in herself awakens the man beside her, reminding him of a deeper way of being alive. The third pillar, unconditional self-love, is the fragrance of the soul that no man can resist, because it radiates without effort, like a flower that blooms simply because blooming is its nature, not because it needs to be admired. To love yourself unconditionally is to release the endless measuring of worth by achievements, by attention, or by comparison, and to accept yourself as a living expression of the divine. In Jung's spiritual wisdom, this is the anima in its highest expression, the feminine principle that heals and harmonizes, not by striving, but by simply being. And when a woman carries this fragrance, she no longer has to chase. She simply exists, and her existence becomes magnetic. This kind of self-love is not arrogance. It is not ego. It is alignment with the truth that you are already whole, already worthy, already luminous. When emotional independence, conscious presence, and unconditional self-love merge into one living reality, they create a field of energy that no man can deny, because his soul feels seen, inspired, and safe in such a presence. This is not manipulation. This is not performance. This is spiritual awakening manifesting in human form. And when a woman lives from this place, she does not have to compete, because the right man feels it in his depths. This is the soul that mirrors him back to himself, the soul he cannot ignore, the soul that his being will choose beyond all logic, beyond all comparison, because it is the recognition of truth. We hope this insight into the 3 pillars of magnetic feminine energy has inspired you to embrace your authentic power. If you're ready to embody this spiritual wisdom and awaken the radiance within, comment, "I embody magnetic energy," below. Your voice encourages us to share more truths that uplift and transform. 6. Transformation and results. When a woman decides to shift from seeking validation to embodying her true essence, something profound happens. She naturally filters out the men who are immature, insecure, or unwilling to step into the depth of real love. And instead, she begins to attract only those who are prepared for authenticity and partnership. This change is not about playing games or presenting perfection. It is about aligning your words, actions, and presence into one coherent energy that communicates safety, freedom, and respect. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you live by this truth, you become magnetic without effort, because your calm confidence, your grace in receiving, and your clarity in boundaries invite a man who values growth and maturity while discouraging anyone who only seeks fleeting attention. Relationships that grow from this space are not shallow connections held together by fear or performance. They are deeper, healthier, and longer lasting because they rest on freedom, mutual respect, and authenticity. You no longer find yourself accepting crumbs of affection or overextending your energy in the hope of being chosen. Instead, you rise as the treasure that a worthy man recognizes and cherishes. This is where spirituality meets the daily practice of love, because every moment you honor yourself, you are engaging in spiritual growth, transforming unconscious patterns into conscious choices, and showing both yourself and others that true intimacy begins with self-respect. You do not chase. You do not plead. You do not overprove. You simply hold steady in your wholeness, and in doing so, you create an energetic filter where only the man ready for commitment and authenticity can meet you. From this shift come practical lessons for your journey. Express your needs in clear and simple words. Observe whether his actions consistently align with his promises. Invest only in what feels mutual and kind, and nurture a life filled with purpose, joy, and friendships so that love adds to your abundance instead of filling a void. The more you live this way, the more your presence becomes magnetic in the truest sense, and the right soul, one who is prepared for partnership, will feel inspired to match you with devotion, consistency, and care. In the end, this is not about winning attention, but about stepping into your sacred power, where love flourishes not because you were chosen, but because you chose to become the fullest expression of who you are. 7. The ultimate lesson. The one thing that makes him choose you above everyone else is not about changing yourself to fit his expectations, but about choosing yourself and living fully in your true feminine essence. When you stop performing, pleasing, or competing to be noticed, and instead honor your authentic self, a profound shift happens. Your energy softens, your confidence deepens, and you radiate a quiet strength that no one can ignore. Carl Jung once said, Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakes? And this truth applies deeply to love. When you turn inward and awaken to your own value, you no longer chase, compare, or play games. Instead, you become grounded in who you are, and this grounded presence is what draws a man's soul to you, because he senses safety, wholeness, and truth in your energy. Loving yourself fully does not make you selfish. It makes you magnetic. When you embrace your worth, you awaken love not only in him, but also in everyone around you. People respond to the vibration you carry, and your self-love becomes a mirror that encourages them to rise higher. Think of a lighthouse. It does not run along the shore, begging ships to notice. It simply shines steadily, and those who need its light are naturally drawn to it. Your self-trust is that light, and the man meant for you is drawn not to your perfection, but to your consistency, your authenticity, and your ability to stand in your own truth. This path, however, requires trust, courage, and the unlearning of old patterns that kept you stuck in fear. Trust means allowing space for him to come closer without rushing or forcing outcomes. Courage means holding your standards firmly yet lovingly, even if it means walking away from what does not honor you. Unlearning means letting go of the belief that love must be earned through overgiving, chasing, or proving yourself. Instead, you learn to rest in your worth, to sit with your emotions without denying them, and to speak with honesty rather than with strategies or tests. When you choose yourself, you stop equating chaos with chemistry and stop confusing attention with love. You begin to see that true connection comes from sincerity, not performance. Your conversations shift from testing and teasing to openness and tenderness. You listen more, you speak with clarity, and you allow silence to breathe instead of filling it with anxiety. Slowly, you embody what spirituality and spiritual awakening truly mean in relationships. Love becomes a path of growth rather than a battlefield of insecurity. You carry yourself with grace, and your presence alone communicates that you are not seeking validation, you are already whole. As you walk this path, your presence becomes magnetic in ways words cannot fully explain. You are calm, radiant, and unshakably authentic. You are not auditioning for a role in someone's life. You are living fully on your own. This is why the man who is meant for you will choose you above all others. It is not because you worked harder, looked prettier, or played the right games, but because you chose yourself first, honored your essence, and let your inner light shine steadily like a lighthouse guiding him home. To seal this ultimate lesson into your heart, affirm your readiness to live it fully. Comment below, "I embrace the ultimate lesson," as a declaration of your growth and an inspiration for others walking the same path. So as we've seen, the secret isn't about beauty, perfection, or competing for attention. It's about embodying your authentic feminine essence and allowing that quiet but powerful presence to speak for you. Carl Jung's insights remind us that true connection is born from authenticity, not performance, and that when you embrace your sacred energy, you naturally draw the right soul toward you. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced the magnetic pull of simply being yourself? Share your story in the comments below, and let's continue this journey of spiritual wisdom together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here on Spiritual Wisdom for more insights to guide your growth and happiness. Master your shadow Master your mind. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung once said, "Every shadow we ignore within ourselves becomes a silent puppeteer, shaping our thoughts, emotions, and choices without us even realizing it." On Spiritual Wisdom, we believe that mastering your shadow is not about eliminating darkness, but about transforming it into the very fuel that awakens your true mind and spirit. As you listen, I invite you to reflect. What hidden patterns or fears might be guiding your life right now? Share your thoughts in the comments, because the first step toward freedom is daring to name what has been unseen. 1. The shadow. What it is and why it matters. The shadow is not an external demon to be feared, but the hidden side of your own psyche, the place where you've buried emotions, impulses, and traits that you were told were unacceptable since childhood: anger, envy, selfishness, sadness. Yet repressing these parts never destroys them. They remain alive, influencing your decisions, shaping your relationships, and silently dictating the course of your life. Jung's warning rings true. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow is not evil in nature. It is unconscious, like a locked room in your own house that you refuse to enter. But inside that room is not only pain, it is also power, creativity, and untapped wisdom waiting for you to reclaim it. Many men, well into their 30s, 40s, or 60s, live under its influence without realizing it. They repeat destructive patterns, fall into the same broken relationships, lose themselves in the same conflicts, and wonder why life feels like an endless loop of disappointment. They call it destiny or bad luck, but it is the shadow at work, quietly pulling the strings from the background. Think of it as a reservoir of energy. Denied and ignored, it leaks into your life as uncontrolled rage, jealousy, despair. But faced directly, it becomes fuel for an inner fire that can be directed towards self-mastery, clarity, and purpose. This is why Jung insisted that wholeness does not come from rejecting the shadow, but from integrating it, because only then do you stand in the truth of your full humanity. In today's world, where men are told to hide fear, bury sadness, and never show weakness, the need to face the shadow is even more urgent. Suppressed emotions do not vanish. They build pressure, like a volcano waiting to erupt. And when they do, they destroy families, careers, and inner peace. Spirituality teaches us that light cannot exist without shadow. Both are necessary for wholeness. Spiritual awakening is not about pretending to be eternally positive, but about embracing the entire spectrum of who you are. If you felt restless, lost, or haunted by choices that make no sense, it is the shadow calling, urging you to listen. The path of integration requires courage because it demands radical honesty. It means admitting that you are capable of envy, rage, selfishness, and weakness. But the paradox is this: once acknowledged, these traits lose their destructive power and become tools for growth. A man who denies his anger becomes its prisoner, exploding unpredictably. A man who accepts his anger learns to channel it into boundaries, leadership, and strength. The shadow, once faced, becomes a teacher that sharpens your awareness, reveals your projections, and helps you act with greater intention rather than blind reaction. This practice begins in the smallest moments. Notice when your emotions feel larger than the situation at hand. Ask yourself, what is truly happening inside me? What am I refusing to see? Write it down, sit with it, or speak with someone you trust. Discomfort is not an enemy, it is a doorway. Each time you uncover a hidden piece of your shadow, you reclaim a lost fragment of your soul. Over time, this work leads to clarity, resilience, and a steady center from which no storm can easily shake you. To master the shadow is to accept that you are both light and darkness, both strong and vulnerable, both noble and flawed. This acceptance frees you from the exhausting battle of pretending, of wearing masks, of running from yourself. It allows you to step fully into your life with authenticity, presence, and power. This is more than psychology. It is a spiritual awakening, a return to wholeness that transforms not only how you see yourself, but how you move through the world, shaping your relationships, your work, and the legacy you leave behind. Have you ever faced your shadow and discovered what it was trying to teach you? If so, share your experience in the comments to inspire others. If not, comment "I will face it" so we can walk this path of self-mastery together. 2. The psychological cost of repression. When you repress the shadow within, it does not disappear. It lingers in the unconscious, gathering strength and influencing your life from the darkness. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Every unacknowledged wound, every denied emotion, every hidden part of yourself continues to act in silence, shaping your choices, your relationships, and even your mental and physical well-being. Anxiety that strikes without warning, depression that drains your spirit, self-sabotage that undermines your goals, sudden emotional outbursts, chronic guilt, and lingering shame are not random weaknesses of character. They are signs of the shadow pressing against the walls you built to contain it. Left unaddressed, repression leads to toxic relationship patterns, cycles of guilt, and a sense of inner fragmentation that makes you feel divided, incomplete, and estranged from your own essence. Repression gains much of its strength through the persona, the mask you wear to survive in society, to win approval, to appear strong or agreeable, even when your inner truth is suffering. Jung described the persona as necessary but dangerous when mistaken for your authentic self. You may laugh when you want to cry, agree when your heart says no, or suppress your anger for fear of being judged. In doing so, you create a polished mask that pleases others but betrays your soul. As Shakespeare once observed, God has given you one face, and you make yourself another. That second face may protect you for a time, but beneath it, your shadow grows restless, leaking into your dreams, your fears, your sudden overreactions, and the choices you regret but cannot explain. Repressed shadow energy behaves like a caged animal, unseen yet powerful, agitated, and waiting for any chance to escape. It reveals itself in moments when you lash out at someone you love over something trivial, when envy bites at you despite your attempts to feel only joy for another's success, or when shame rises suddenly and clouds your sense of worth. These contradictions reveal a deeper truth. What is denied within does not vanish. It grows more insistent in silence. Nietzsche captured this danger when he wrote, "Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." By repressing your shadow for too long, you risk being consumed by the very forces you refuse to face. The path of spiritual wisdom, illuminated by Carl Jung's insights, calls you not to destroy the shadow, but to integrate it, to reclaim the parts of yourself that you abandoned. To admit your anger is to find its hidden lesson in boundaries and courage rather than destruction. To embrace your vulnerability is to discover deeper authenticity and the power of genuine human connection. Integration is not perfection, it is wholeness, and wholeness ends the war within. The mind cannot be mastered while it is divided against itself. Each step you take toward integration weakens the grip of repression. The mask becomes unnecessary because your authentic self can breathe freely without fear of rejection. The shadow becomes less an enemy and more a guide, teaching you strength, compassion, and resilience. What once sabotaged you now empowers you, because in facing what was hidden, you claim the fullness of your humanity. Repression is costly, but awareness liberates. When you dare to face your shadow, you reclaim the freedom to live without disguise, without fear, and without shame. 3. Confrontation, not suppression, is the cure. You must consciously confront your shadow to stop being ruled by it, because every time you try to suppress it, you only give it more power. Though it may feel easier to look away, Carl Jung taught us that you are not just your good side. You are also what you fear most to admit. Facing that fear is uncomfortable, but it is also the birthplace of healing and resilience, the place where spiritual wisdom becomes reality, and where true spiritual growth begins to take root. Think about how this plays out in modern life. A man named David, always calm at work, suddenly explodes when a colleague questions him, not because of the question itself, but because deep down, he still carries the weight of being dismissed and overlooked as a child. The shadow memory of "I am not respected" fuels his anger, and until he turns inward to acknowledge it, the pattern repeats. The moment David stops and admits, "This isn't only about today, it's about old pain I've been carrying," he opens the door to understanding rather than lashing out. And in that single act of honesty, the shadow loses its grip. Jung warned us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That truth explains why so many of us keep stumbling into the same mistakes. We are not cursed. We are simply unconscious of what drives us. Confronting our shadow is how we break that loop. This practice is not self-condemnation, but self-respect, because the shadow does not only hide wounds, it also conceals gifts. Your anger may contain the courage to protect what matters. Your jealousy may reveal the path your soul longs to walk. Your perfectionism may be reshaped into a pursuit of excellence that inspires instead of shames. When you dare to bring these forces into the light, you stop being torn apart by them and instead become strengthened by them. So whenever you feel a strong reaction, pause and breathe. Name the emotion without judgment. Ask yourself, what is this really protecting? And then listen. Write down the answer. And, if needed, take a small outer step. Apologize, set a boundary, or ask for help. Because integration is not just insight, it is action that heals. Over time, with daily practice, you will notice that you no longer feel hijacked by sudden reactions, that your decisions grow clearer and your energy more grounded. The mind begins to trust you to tell the truth and no longer needs to defend itself with denial. This is how you master your mind by mastering your shadow. The lessons are simple, but life-changing. Facing discomfort is the doorway to growth. Naming your emotions reduces their control. Asking what they protect uncovers hidden needs. Taking small, conscious actions integrates your discoveries, and repeating this practice daily rewires your inner world. When you live this way, you honor your spirituality not with distant ideals, but with real courage. You expand your spiritual growth not by pretending to be pure, but by embracing the wholeness of who you are, and you finally begin to experience the freedom of a life no longer ruled by what you fear to admit. Leave your like, subscribe to our channel Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. And to affirm your commitment to true healing, type in the comments, "I confront my shadow and transform my mind." 4. The role of archetypes in shadow integration. During the process of shadow work, Carl Jung revealed that archetypes are not distant theories, but living forces that rise from the unconscious, shaping our emotions, decisions, and patterns in ways we often fail to notice. They are like invisible actors in the theater of the mind, sometimes guiding us, sometimes deceiving us, but always carrying a lesson. Among the most powerful archetypes that appear are the anima and animus, the self, and the trickster. And learning to recognize their presence becomes a turning point in both spirituality and spiritual awakening. For they can either illuminate your path or pull you back into the very darkness you are trying to escape. The anima and animus embody the inner feminine and masculine energies that live within every person. For men, the anima brings forth intuition, sensitivity, and the capacity to feel beyond logic, qualities that are often repressed in cultures that define masculinity only through toughness and control. To deny her is to deny half of your soul, but to embrace her is to find a balance that makes you more whole, compassionate, and deeply connected to life. The animus, in turn, represents structure, discipline, and decisiveness, helping you act with clarity and conviction when the world demands strength. Together, they act as bridges between the conscious and unconscious, teaching that true masculinity is not rigid dominance, but a dance between softness and strength, logic and intuition, discipline and creativity. When you honor both, you gain the courage to meet yourself fully without fear. Beyond these two figures lies the archetype of the self, the symbol of wholeness and integration. The self is not the ego, it is larger, containing both the light you proudly show and the shadow you try to bury. Spiritual traditions across cultures describe it as the higher self, the divine spark, the soul's true essence. When the self appears, often in dreams, visions, or in moments of crisis that strip away illusions, it calls you to live authentically, to shed the masks that society has forced on you, and to realize that real power lies not in conquering others, but in aligning with your inner truth. To awaken the self is to see that freedom is not the absence of struggle, but the courage to live as a whole being who accepts every part of himself, both the luminous and the dark. Yet shadow work is never without resistance, and that resistance often comes in the form of the trickster. This archetype thrives on inversion, disruption, and ego traps, leading you into self-sabotage or convincing you that you have already mastered yourself when you have only scratched the surface. The trickster whispers through temptation, pride, or complacency, trying to pull you back into old habits just when you are ready to break free. He is not there to destroy you, but to test whether your awakening is real or simply another mask. Many men stumble here, confusing fleeting progress for lasting transformation. But those who learn to recognize the trickster's games gain sharper awareness and deeper humility. In this way, even the trickster becomes a teacher, forcing you to refine your vigilance and deepen your commitment to the path. The anima and animus open the way to balance. The self points toward wholeness, and the trickster keeps you from arrogance and stagnation. Together, they create a map of the psyche, showing that your shadow is not an enemy to be feared, but a frontier to be explored. To face these forces with honesty is to master not only the hidden parts of your being, but also the restless mind that so often controls you. To integrate them is to experience a spiritual awakening that reshapes how you love, how you lead, and how you live. In the very depths of the unconscious, where darkness seems overwhelming, lies the key to becoming the man you were destined to be: whole, awake, and unshakably free. 5. Emotional intelligence through shadow work. When you choose to integrate your shadow instead of hiding from it, you begin to notice a remarkable shift in how you move through life. Because as Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think of those moments when the smallest comment ignites a storm inside you, or when familiar frustrations keep circling back. These are not random accidents, but signals from the shadow, urging you to listen. When you finally turn toward them with spiritual wisdom, you become less reactive and more self-aware, not by suppressing emotions, but by learning to interpret their deeper meaning. The shadow holds enormous energy that, when ignored, becomes chaos, but when embraced, transforms into clarity, creativity, and emotional balance. Each time you acknowledge a fear, uncover the jealousy beneath your anger, or recognize a judgment that mirrors your own wound, you reclaim psychic energy that was once wasted on hiding. That energy becomes available for your art, your problem solving, your relationships, and the steady presence that draws others to you. This is the turning point where projection loses its grip. Instead of pushing your hidden insecurities or suppressed anger onto others, you pause and ask, what is this reaction teaching me about myself? In that moment of humility, you break free from blame and step into authorship of your life. Jung reminded us that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And this truth creates a bridge from conflict to self-knowledge. With practice, authenticity takes root in your daily life. You speak your truth with kindness, feel your emotions without drowning in them, set boundaries with calm strength, and discover that inner peace is not something to chase, but something that quietly arises when you stop pretending. Emotional strength, in this light, is not a hardened shield, but a supple resilience, the ability to hold grief without collapse, to welcome joy without clinging, to face criticism without breaking, and to admit mistakes without shame. Imagine a simple, everyday scenario. Your partner forgets a promise, your coworker interrupts you, or a driver cuts you off in traffic. Instead of reacting with instant heat, you can treat the surge within you as information, not instruction. By naming the feeling, tracing its root, and asking what it protects, you create space to respond with intention, whether that means calmly stating your need, setting a clear boundary, or choosing to reinterpret the situation with generosity. Slowly, these choices accumulate, and your mind no longer feels like a battlefield of impulses, but like a council where every part of you has a voice and you, the conscious self holds steady authority. Carl Jung also warned that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is the essence of shadow work, not running from darkness, but using it as raw material for growth. When you embrace this process, you transform hidden pain into wisdom, confusion into clarity, and inner tension into creative force. By bringing light into your own depths, you become less reactive and more aware. You stop projecting pain onto others, and you cultivate authenticity that feels natural and unshakable. Through Carl Jung's teachings and the path of spiritual wisdom, the message is clear. True emotional intelligence is born not from escaping your shadow, but from befriending it. Because only then can you unlock the creativity, balance, and quiet strength that were always waiting for you. If you're still with us on this journey of mastering emotional intelligence through shadow work, comment below, "I'm aware of my emotions." Your feedback helps us grow and connect deeper with you. 6. Practical daily tools for shadow integration. Every one of us carries a hidden side, what Carl Jung called the shadow. And it is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a part of you waiting to be understood, embraced, and transformed. To keep this shadow integrated requires daily practices that ground you in awareness, honesty, and courage, because real spirituality and spiritual growth are not about escaping what is dark, but shining light into it. Self-observation is the first tool. The art of watching your triggers and reactions with calm attention. When you feel jealousy, anger, or insecurity arise, instead of reacting blindly, pause and ask yourself, what deeper wound is being touched? A common example is when a colleague receives praise and you feel overlooked. The irritation is not just about the moment. It is a signal from the shadow, reminding you of an old story about not being valued. By noticing it, you loosen its grip and turn what could have been another cycle of bitterness into a chance for awareness. Reflective journaling builds on this by taking the storm of thoughts and emotions out of your head and placing them on paper. Writing slows you down and forces clarity, exposing repeated patterns you might otherwise miss. Over time, you may see that every time you feel criticized, you retreat or grow defensive. And through writing, you trace this back to childhood moments of rejection. By giving the shadow a voice through your journal, you take away its power to control you from the dark. Because what is written is no longer hidden. Dream analysis opens yet another door. Because your unconscious speaks at night in symbols and images. A recurring dream of being chased might be your psyche showing you what truths you are avoiding in waking life. When you track and reflect on these dreams, you are in dialogue with the deepest layers of yourself, receiving guidance from within that no outside teacher can give you. Mindfulness then anchors you in the present, teaching you that between stimulus and response lies a sacred pause where freedom lives. If someone cuts you off on the road, your shadow may want to explode in rage, but with mindfulness, you can take a breath and choose patience. It is not about suppressing the anger, but meeting it with awareness, transforming a reflex into a conscious choice. Boundary setting is equally essential, because every time you say yes when you mean no, you feed the shadow of resentment and self-betrayal. Protecting your needs and energy is not selfish, but an act of integrity. When you decline a request you cannot fulfill, you affirm your worth, and in doing so, you prevent hidden anger from festering in the unconscious. Periodic persona check-ins are the final practice, especially relevant in an age where social media constantly tempts us to project masks of success, happiness, or perfection. Asking yourself, "What am I hiding to fit in?" keeps you honest about the roles you play. Perhaps you always act strong when you feel weak, or pretend to be endlessly positive while sadness weighs on you. By noticing these masks, you begin to strip them away and allow your true self to emerge. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege is only possible when the shadow is welcomed instead of denied. The lesson is clear. Observe your triggers to reclaim freedom. Journal to uncover patterns. Study your dreams to hear your soul. Practice mindfulness to meet life with presence. Set boundaries to protect your worth, and question your masks to return to authenticity. These daily tools are not just practices, but pathways back to wholeness, reminding you that mastering the shadow is not about destroying darkness, but about integrating it into light. And in that integration lies the heart of true spirituality and spiritual growth. 7. This is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. Shadow integration is not a quick solution that you can apply once and be done with. It is a lifelong journey, a discipline that requires patience, honesty, and courage. As you grow, new layers of your shadow surface, revealing aspects of yourself you thought were resolved, but are simply waiting for the right moment to show themselves. You may conquer one form of fear, only to discover another hidden beneath a new responsibility or relationship. You may believe you have overcome anger, only to realize it still lingers when life challenges you in unexpected ways. This is why Carl Jung insisted that the more you evolve, the more refined your awareness must become. Awareness must be sharpened like a blade, because only with clarity can you see the subtle ways your shadow still shapes your choices, your words, and your daily habits. Without this awareness, you risk being controlled by what you refuse to acknowledge. Jung warned that ignoring the shadow invites chronic psychological suffering, and you can see this truth all around you. The man who hides his insecurity behind arrogance ends up alone and misunderstood. The man who refuses to face his unresolved anger distracts himself with work, alcohol, or endless busyness. But inside, he is breaking down. Suppression does not eliminate the shadow. It makes it stronger, a silent master pulling the strings of your life from the dark. This is the tragedy of a man who avoids himself and becomes imprisoned by what he refuses to face. But when you dare to turn toward the shadow and confront it with honesty, something powerful happens. You reclaim your freedom, your strength, and your wholeness. You no longer live as a divided man, one part polished for the world, while another hides in shame and fear. You live as an integrated man, unafraid of the truth that resides within you. The rewards of this integration are profound. By embracing your shadow, you transform weakness into wisdom, fear into power, and shame into authenticity. You begin to walk with a sense of inner authority because nothing within you is being denied. This is the essence of spirituality. It is not about pretending to be pure light, nor about escaping suffering, but about holding both your light and darkness in balance. True spiritual awakening comes when you no longer run from yourself, when you allow every part of your being to be seen, understood, and embraced. The shadow you fear is not your enemy, but the hidden doorway to your liberation. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. By making your shadow conscious, you no longer stumble blindly into repeating patterns. You rise above them and take control of your own destiny. This is the work of a lifetime, but it is also the path to becoming a whole and powerful man. 8. Final message: choose truth over comfort. Mastering the shadow, as Carl Jung revealed, is a one-way path. Once you uncover what has been buried in the darkness, you cannot turn back or unsee it. The shadow is not some distant concept. It is the hidden side of your own soul. The parts of you that you deny, repress, or try to bury beneath the polished mask of social acceptance. Yet these denied aspects do not disappear. They sink into the unconscious, shaping your life silently, creating patterns you may mistakenly call fate. Jung's warning echoes here. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Facing your shadow is not about destroying who you are. It is about reclaiming the lost fragments of your spirit and integrating them into your wholeness. Real transformation demands courage, for it asks you to confront not only the parts of yourself that shine, but also the ones that sting: the anger, jealousy, grief, and longing you try to hide. These emotions linger like shadows, whispering from the depths, until you finally turn to face them. By stepping into this confrontation, you begin the true work of spiritual wisdom, where spirituality is no longer about light alone, but about making the darkness conscious and using it as a source of growth. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious, Jung reminds us. And it is this courageous confrontation that opens the door to authentic awakening. The shadow, once feared as an enemy, becomes your greatest teacher. It strips away illusions, revealing the truth of who you are beneath every mask, every pretense, every desperate attempt to be accepted. In this raw honesty, you discover freedom. When you have faced the worst within yourself, you become emotionally unshakable. No insult, rejection, or opinion can destabilize you, because you have already walked through the fire of your own depths. You begin to live authentically, rooted in an aliveness that others can sense immediately. Those who walk this path radiate presence, because they no longer trade their truth for approval. They embody a life aligned with reality rather than illusion. To choose this journey is to choose truth over comfort. Comfort keeps you trapped in the same cycles, but truth liberates you, even if it first burns. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It is not about ignoring what hurts, but about embracing it, transforming it, and allowing it to shape you into someone fully alive. The question you must ask yourself is simple. Do you want to remain in comfort, or do you want to live in truth? If you are ready, speak it into existence as a commitment to your own growth. Comment, "I am willing to face my shadow," as a declaration that you choose courage, authenticity, and awakening over the illusion of safety. Throughout this journey, we've explored Carl Jung's powerful insight that by facing and mastering your shadow, you unlock the key to mastering your own mind. True growth begins not by denying the darker parts of ourselves, but by integrating them, transforming hidden fears into wisdom and inner strength. As you step away from this video, I encourage you to reflect. What part of your shadow is asking to be acknowledged today. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may inspire someone else on their path. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here at Spiritual Wisdom for more guidance on your journey towards self-mastery and inner peace.